this video, I will be explaining tasks 2A, 2B, and 2C. These tasks started with looking at the teacher self-rating scales, and this included lots of different elements. I think like 40-something elements of different aspects of things that you do in the classroom. So I looked over all of the self-rating skills, and I tried my best to be very honest with myself. You obviously don't want to give yourself the best scores. That's not going to help you. So I scored what I honestly thought I did on each of those elements. And when I got done, I felt like I did a pretty good job. I had lots of 2s and 3s and only a couple 4s, which I feel is pretty honest with myself. Then in task 2B, I reviewed all the scores and selected my growth goals. Now, I didn't pick the 3 lowest scores because there were a couple things on there that I didn't really feel like applied to my classroom, which happens a lot since I am an art teacher. Some things just don't apply to that subject. But my growth goals that I selected were element 23, noticing and reacting to students who are not engaged; element 36, acknowledging adherence to the rules and procedures; and element 39, understanding students' background and interests. And on element 23, I scored a 3. And on element 36, I scored a 2, and on element 39, I scored a 3. So only one of those is a 2. I don't think I scored a 1 on any of the elements. I had a couple that didn't apply to me, but not a 1. So again, those are not my lowest scores, but I didn't pick like 3 scores that I all got 2s on. So I didn't pick the lowest scores, but I picked areas that I personally wanted to improve in because I feel like they're most important for my classroom, and getting better at those will just help everything else. And I do feel like I could do a better job in each of those areas, even though they're not all my lowest scores. And I think that if I just put more focus into those areas, that would be what would help. There's always so much to do, and if I just took a little bit of time to look into those areas and kind of focus on, okay, what could I do better, then I would improve. I just want to kind of highlight those growth goals to help me improve. To gather data about each goal, I administered, going to administer the surveys, and then document lots of things about each goal. Obviously, I'll do surveys for each one. The one that has to do, I believe it was element 23, noticing and reacting when students are not engaged. I can kind of like gather data on how many times I'm having to do that, or noticing when I'm doing it, like, okay, in this class I had to respond to this number of students not engaged. I could also document the number of students that actually complete the project, because if more students are completing the project, that means that most of the students are engaged the whole time that they're in class. For acknowledging adherence to the rules, I could document the number of class rewards I give out or individual rewards I give out in a given amount of time. And then for understanding students' backgrounds and interests, I could have open-ended projects where the students have more choice, and then I would learn more about my students through their work, which luckily for me is somewhat easy to do because of the subject that I teach, art. I can help them express themselves in lots of different ways. So there's lots of different ways that I can collect data for these, what I learned from that data, especially the surveys, which I was a little surprised about my survey results, is that understanding students' background and interests was my lowest overall mean or score. When I looked through all of the numbers, and my highest score or mean overall was noticing when students are not engaged. And this was kind of surprising to me. I didn't think that I would have like horribly low scores on those, but I kind of thought it would be the other way around. So I thought that, you know, understanding students' background and interests would be a higher score than noticing when students are not engaged. And I guess that I just thought that because of the nature of my subject area, art, it's a lot about self-expression. So I guess I just assumed because of that, I knew a lot about my students' background and interests. But it could be that I haven't really dived into that because I'm more focused on teaching and the lesson and things like that. So I was a little surprised by that. My highest standard deviation score was for acknowledging adherence to the rules. And I was a little worried by this because that basically shows me that the scores for that survey were kind of all over the place. There wasn't like a consistent score throughout all of the students. And so that shows me that they're not all on the same page. So there's got to be some confusion with a good deal of students about how I acknowledge adherence to the rules. And I want them to all be on the same page because if they're not all on the same page, which it seems like they're not, they don't know how I show appreciation for following the rules. And if they don't know how I show it, then that may make some students less likely to be motivated to follow the rules and the procedures and things like that. Overall, I do think this information will be extremely helpful to me. It already is because it's showing me areas where I can improve and things that I didn't know about my classroom that I thought I did. So it will definitely help me become a more effective teacher.